So good morning from the Big Cypress. So today's video, I thought I would talk about photographing wildlife from a boat. So if you're a wildlife photographer, you may be interested in photographing from your kayak or your canoe, and maybe you haven't yet done that, or maybe you've just started to do that, or you're thinking about purchasing a boat to help you do that. So my thought is, first of all, is that by having a boat, you're going to access areas that you otherwise would not access. So that may get you to some wading birds, it may get you to some nesting loons, or whatever that case may be. Having a boat to approach wildlife is very doable, and so I'm hoping that maybe I can give you some tips to help you do that. Here's a few tips. First of all, when it comes to the boat itself, the type of boat that you have, honestly, I really don't have anything specific to say except, maybe a low profile boat is better than a higher profile boat. The smaller it is, the more stealth you can be. Maybe there's camouflage that you can use. So there might be ways that you can make it more stealth. So that's my thought. But in reality, what I really think is that your ability to approach wildlife is going to depend more on the bird or the animal itself. How easily you can approach that animal is going to depend more on what that animal is doing, the kind of day it's having. Are there other animals around, other birds? What's the environment and the species as well. Some, my experience with wading birds, some are more approachable than others. So that has, I think, more to do with wildlife photography in a boat than the boat itself. All right, so that's that. The other thing I would suggest, if you're not used to shooting from a boat, is get out there and practice being in the boat. Get used to, leaning to one side and this side and having your big lens in your hand. If you're using a tripod with the big lens, you want to get used to that. That shifts the center of gravity. So I would, just go out there and practice and get used to being in the boat. But the other thing that kind of goes along with that is you may have your, sights on something specific to photograph. There might be nesting loons on a lake, or there's wading birds on a low tide bay that you want to get to. Go there and observe them. Just observe them and see what it is they're doing, and kind of get a sense of what it is that you're going to be photographing. Now remember, you're in the water, and down here in Florida, predators are in the water. Big gators are predators for birds. So as far as the bird is concerned, my boat and I are just one big predator. So, you have to be as stealth as you can, although I do think sometimes being stealth just makes you more like a gator than not. So, birds will be more alert under certain circumstances, I find. But anyway, so when you're approaching the animal, what you're doing is you're looking from a distance. You haven't quite gotten to the point yet where you can get your camera out and shoot them. You're not close enough yet. And by the way, you better have some focal length, right? So I use at least a 400 millimeter. But remember, the bigger the lens you have, the harder it is for you to handle it in the boat. You might have to go to a tripod. So anyway, start observing, start paying attention, and tip number 2 is have the sun behind you. So that's the other thing you have to think about. If you're going to a lake or a bay or someplace you have to think about where the sun is going to be relative to the animals. So try to get that sun behind you. All right, so the sun behind you, the birds are way up there, and I'm watching them, and I can kind of see that there's some tricolor herons, white ibises, there's a great white egret, roseate spoonbills. Anyway, so now I'm going to start kind of watching them and just being very, very quiet and moving slow, no sudden movements, no noises. Turn the cell phone off. Hopefully there's nobody with you. If there is, everybody needs to be quiet and just watch. Now at some point, you're going to want to get your camera out. So with me, my camera is right here in a pelican case. So I have to open that pelican case. Now listen to this. Ooh, that's loud. So I would want to do that long before I get too close to those birds. So I would have my camera out, get the exposure, just get it ready so that I don't have to fumble around with that when I finally get close enough to them to photograph. All right, so pretend I have my camera with me in my lap. It would be sitting right here. And now I'm approaching the birds. And now the birds are, they're about 50 feet away. They know I'm here. They've already been alert to me. And as soon as I saw that they were alert, I stopped and I just waited to see what they would do. If they went back to feeding, which is what they would be doing if they're wading birds, then that means that I could probably get a little closer. So I move in nice and slow. Now notice my paddle. I'm not making any noises with my paddle. I'm also keeping the paddle low. Okay, very important because the paddle, boom, boom, makes a lot of noise. So try not to hit your boat with it. Be very, very careful. And then when you get close enough, and if you're in shallow water, okay, you might be able to take your foot and just put it off to the side like this. This is what I used to do when I photographed on Biscayne Bay. It would be low tide, the sun's behind me, and I would just step down, maybe 6 inches of water at the most, and I would just sit. My boat's stable, and now I can just kind of watch and wait for those birds to get into the good light. Okay, and if I had to move, then I would be very, very careful, and I would just take my foot and just kind of move my boat and just kind of follow the birds as best as I could. So that's with birds. And other wildlife, I've approached crocodiles, alligators, pretty much the same way. They will disappear. When I approach a crocodile, the couple of times that I photographed them, I would get close enough, get some shots, and then they would just kind of go underwater and go away. All right, so you got the sun behind you, you're being very quiet, you're being very slow, no sudden movements, no sudden noises, no loud noises, and once you get in there, you can start shooting. And the worst thing that happens to me when I'm in a situation like that is I run out of battery. Anyway, so keep your boat stable. If you're in deep water, you're going to have to anchor. That's not the most ideal because there's always going to be movement. With me, I have my stick-it pins, and I can, with shallow enough water, I can just put those in the water and I'm stable. Anyway, I hope that gives you some ideas on how you can get in your boat with your big lens and maybe get some shots of some wildlife. Just get out there and practice and enjoy watching nature.